If you were trapped in a demonic puzzle that fulfilled your deepest desires but pitted you against your best friends, what would you do? These 4 teenagers want to know if they'll be friends forever, but they're going to find out the hard way that every wish comes with a price. I'm here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the evil game in the friendship game. These teenagers are about to find out why you should never take your friendships for granted. Checking out the items at a yard sale in her neighborhood, pink-haired teenager Cotton Allen and her blue-haired friend Z spot a darkly mysterious many-sided object. A creepy old lady tells her that it's a friendship game. She tells Cotton that the object tests your friendships, and if they don't survive, then neither do you. Cotton, Z, and their friends Courtney and Robbie are hanging out in the neighborhood park when Cotton notices Z looking sad and asks her what's wrong. Z replies that it's just the end of summer bummers, so Cotton gives her a hug and reassures her that it'll be their best summer ever. In Cotton's room, the 4 of them sit around the object as she tells them the rules to the friendship game. They don't realize it at the time, but local creepy kid Kyle has hacked into Cotton's webcam and is recording them through it. Cotton tells them that they win by staying friends, but it only works if they all tell the truth. She says that they only have a limited time left together before they all go their separate ways at the end of the summer, and if they play the game, they know if they'll stay friends forever. Z puts her hand on the object first, followed by Robbie, Courtney, and Cotton, and they start the game. Cotton answers first, saying that they're all growing up too fast and she hopes they can break out of the reality of adulthood before they all lose each other, which turns out to be a poor choice of words. Late one night, Cotton and her friends attend a rave at an abandoned building on the outskirts of town. Cotton runs into Courtney out in the street and asks her if she's seen Robbie and Z, but Courtney is drunk and not paying attention. She tries to give Cotton a container full of pills, but Cotton knocks it to the ground and walks away. Cotton walks through the crowded hallways until she comes to a room where she finds Robbie and Z making out on the couch. She runs out to her car and knocks a picture of her friends down from the sun visor, ripping it up in anger. Suddenly, she hears someone say her name from behind her, and looking back, she sees an evil version of herself sitting in the back seat. Evil Cotton reaches up from behind, grabbing her by the neck and causing her face to distort like she's being pulled into another dimension. That makes 1 victim down with 4 more to go. Okay, where do I begin? These geniuses found a mysterious object that a creepy old woman specifically told them will kill them if they use it wrong, and so they decide to take it home and play with it? Haven't they ever seen Jumanji or any of the other movies where people end up stuck in a game with life-threatening stakes? Yard sales can be a great place to get a cheap deal on somebody else's old junk, but I try to avoid them as a rule because you never know when the little trinket you just bought might be cursed. In this case, it was all but spelled out for them by the old lady, so they really have no excuse for what happens next. This thing is essentially just a more complicated version of a Chinese finger trap that you can get at an arcade. So what they need to do to beat it should be obvious to everyone. If the friends pull apart, then they stay stuck within the game, but if they come together, then they can escape. The detail about fulfilling your deepest desires is an obvious red flag. If you've ever heard a story where a genie comes out of a magic lamp to fulfill the hero's 3 wishes, then you should know that it always comes with a catch. You need to be very careful about how you word your desires, otherwise the game will end up twisting your words and making things worse. If just one of them messes things up, then according to the rules clearly laid out by the old lady from before, they all die. If you have even the slightest doubt about any of your friends here, then at least there's a 1 in 4 chance that you'll all end up dead, and I would not want to take those odds. Also, they only win the game if their friendship remains strong, but the fact that they want to test the strength of their friendship means that there's doubt. So why would you take any chances? Meanwhile, to make matters worse, we've got creepy Kyle here hacking into the mainframe like a nerdy sidekick in a 90s action movie. Who knows what he could have seen, not just today, but in general. If Cotton makes it out of this alive, she's going to want to upgrade her cybersecurity, or at least put tape over that webcam. Cotton goes first and says that she wants to break out of this reality, which brings me back to a point I made earlier about choosing your words very carefully. The sudden jump to the rave and the strange things going on there make me think that they've already been sucked into the game's twisted version of reality. Frustrated with her friend's actions at the party, Cotton storms out to her car and rips up a picture of the 4 of them together. Her friendships didn't survive, survive, and so she fails the game and becomes its first victim. Cotton was the one who wanted to play the game in the first place, so out of everyone, she should have remembered the rules. Cotton needed to let go of her anger and make up with her friends in order to win, but now we'll have to see if the other three can salvage their situation without her.
Now, before we get too far here, we wanted to quickly check in with some of our friends all throughout the How to Beat video. If you want to look like the cool protagonist from your favorite horror movie, we suggest the official uniform of How to Beat video employees. These are the only shirts in the market specifically designed for signaling to the world you give great movie recommendations and are tailor-made for fending off the following: serial killers, axe murderers, werewolves, death games of all shapes and sizes, fast zombies, slow zombies, medium fast zombies, sexy vampires, ugly vampires, giant spiders, goblins, ghouls, ghosts, and gremlins. Aside from their unique defensive properties, they also just look really cool. So whether you're a video store employee or just someone who wants the world to know you're having a damn good day, head on over to the link in the description and order your apparel today.
Riding through the neighborhood on his bike, Creepy Kyle stops to check out a missing person poster for Cotton. He rides home and heads into the kitchen, making himself a Kit Kat sandwich. Kyle's mom walks in and tells him that the day camp counselor called and said he hasn't been there all week. She asks him what he does all day, but he doesn't respond and says that she just wants him to stay out of trouble. Kyle goes to his room and opens up a folder of saved recordings of Cotton's webcam, picking out a video of her crying. He sits there watching intently until the video glitches, and it seems like Cotton looks right at the screen. Back at the rave, this time the events play out from Z's perspective. She stands around drinking with Robbie and Courtney, finding an open bottle of booze and finishing it off. Z and Robbie start to get close and head up to the roof to get away from the party. Up on the roof, Robbie asks Z if she thinks that there's an end to the universe. He says that if there's an infinite number of realities, then there's an infinite number of possibilities for the way that their lives will play out. Z says that she wants the summer to last forever and that she's sad because her friends will be leaving for college. But Robbie says that maybe this is the version of reality where they stay friends forever. They kiss and go back inside to make out on the couch. After a while, Z gets up and walks to the bathroom, upset with herself. She looks in the mirror and suddenly she's back in Cotton's bedroom. The mysterious object floats in the air in front of her, and in the bathroom at the rave, she clutches her stomach and falls to the floor. Later, Z sits in her room looking at a picture of her friends when it looks like Cotton begins to melt out of the photo. Z's startled by her mom knocking at the door, who says that a police detective is there to ask her questions about Cotton's disappearance. The detective mentions that Cotton was last seen at the rave, and Z admits that she was at the party, but says that she was too drunk to notice when Cotton left. The detective asks if anything happened that would have tested their friendship, but Z doesn't answer. Later that day, Z and Courtney put up more missing posters for Cotton around the neighborhood. Z mentions the detective, and Courtney says that sometimes she feels like Cotton isn't just missing from the town, but missing from the whole world. Z says that Cotton had been wanting to leave the town for years, but Courtney thinks that she wouldn't have gone without telling them. Later that day, Z goes to work at the local arcade. She goes through the motions of the job, half zoned out until she hears someone say her name from around a corner and goes to investigate. Z goes into the laser tag arena, searching around for the person, and sees them walk behind one of the walls, calling out to them but getting no response. She looks at her reflection in a mirror, but suddenly she's back in the bathroom at the rave, and then back in Cotton's bedroom. She turns around and sees Cotton's computer behind her, the screen rippling and emanating static. Z leans closer and a red image of Cotton appears on the screen. Blood pours out of Z's stomach and she rolls up her shirt, revealing a massive wound, but suddenly she's back in the laser tag arena and her stomach is fine. Z rushes out of the back door of the arcade to her car and runs into Robbie waiting there for her. He tells her that they need to talk so they can figure out what happened to Cotton, but Z gets in her car and drives away. Okay, Creepy Kyle here is obviously completely unhinged, as evidenced by the Kit Kat sandwich that he makes for lunch. It can't be a case of there not being anything else to eat in the house because there's a fruit basket right in front of him. His mom obviously loves him very much, and that fridge is probably stocked with pizza rolls and chicken nuggets. So the only explanation for the Kit Kat sandwich has got to be a deranged personality. That's not to mention he's been skipping camp and sits in his room stalking people on the computer all day. He seems like a troubled kid who shouldn't have unsupervised access to the internet, if you ask me. Kyle's terabytes of footage recorded from people's webcam is highly troubling behavior, but at least he's well organized. That'll come in handy when somebody inevitably needs to go through it for evidence. When he plays the video of Cotton, she turns and looks directly at the camera and the video glitches out. The game's spirit ability to manipulate digital files is just further proof that this whole thing is taking place inside of an alternate version of reality. Z and Robbie sit on the roof talking about how they don't want to lose their friends, but they're too busy having this philosophical conversation to go look for Cotton, and end up losing their friend literally. If the point of the game is to prove that they care about each other enough to stay friends forever, then these two are doing a very bad job so far. Looking into the bathroom mirror, Z's teleported into Cotton's room with the mysterious object floating in the air in front of her. This is either proof that she's trapped in the game's version of reality, or proof that she needs to see a doctor. And I'd say it's time to make peace with her friends before it's too late. The picture of Cotton seeming to melt is yet another clear sign that what Z's experiencing is not reality. Courtney is finally catching on, and she should trust her gut more instead of letting Z shoot down her ideas. Robbie's starting to understand what's going on, so he decides to surprise Z in the alley behind her job and tells her that he thinks the magic object is making their deepest desires come true. Great idea, Robbie. That won't make you seem insane at all. How did he know that she'd be leaving work right at that moment anyway? Does he know her schedule, or has he just been standing there waiting for her to eventually come out? I understand why Z would want to drive away, but given everything that's been going on, she really should have given him a chance. The longer she stays in denial about the friendship game coming true, the closer they all get to losing for good. Back at her house, Z looks through dozens of texts that she's been sending to Cotton with no response. Her mom tells her that she's sorry for what happened to Cotton, but Z snaps at her and says that she's getting used to the people in her life leaving. Z says that her dad left because of her mom, and her mom gets upset and goes off to the kitchen. Z lays down in bed crying and angry when she gets a text from Kyle's mom, Donna, asking if she can babysit him tonight. Donna promises that he won't be a bother this time, and Z reluctantly agrees. Next, we see things from Courtney's perspective. We're back in Cotton's room, with the four of them sitting around with their hands on the object, getting ready to start the game. Courtney says that she's still on the wait list for her university, and that her deepest desire is to get the letter that she's been accepted. A few days later, Courtney is just waking up when her computer mysteriously prints out one of Cotton's wanted posters. Courtney picks it up and notices that the picture is heavily distorted. She looks at her front door, and suddenly a letter comes through the mail slot. She opens it and sees that it's from the university, letting her know that she has finally been accepted. Back in the alley, hanging up posters with Z, Courtney takes out the letter and shows it to her. She says that she didn't think she was going to get in, and Z condescendingly says that none of them did. Courtney points out that her grades in high school weren't that great, and she thinks that her acceptance could be related to the game that they played. Z isn't convinced, arguing that they got the object at a garage sale, and there's no way it could have any magical powers, before handing Courtney the box of posters and storming off. Courtney walks away and throws the posters in the garbage when she hears a noise behind her, and the tin of pills that she tried to give Cotton at the rave comes rolling around the corner. Creeped out, she takes out her phone and announces that she's filming before going to investigate. She sees nothing and picks up the tin, walking back inside when she hears Cotton's voice coming from her phone. She holds up the camera and looks around, and sees Cotton appear on the phone screen, but when she looks in real life, she's not there. Suddenly, Courtney spins around to see Cotton walking up behind her, and when she looks down, she's holding a huge kitchen knife right towards her own stomach. She falls to the ground, but realizes that it was all just a hallucination. Just then, she gets a text from Robbie saying they need to talk about Cotton. Okay, with the way Z treats her mom, I'm not surprised that she has trouble keeping her friends around. She agrees to spend the night babysitting creepy Kyle, and it doesn't take a magic 8-ball to know that this is going to end badly. Watching that kid seems like nothing but trouble, and if Z jokes that she has the police on speed dial after the last time she babysat him, I can't imagine why she would ever want to sign up to do it again. She should have blocked Donna's number if she knew that she'd feel too bad to turn her down. Courtney's deepest desire is to get accepted to her university, and it's great that she wants to be academically successful, but it's a boring desire if I'm being honest. Your deepest desire could be anything. Why not go big and desire to be as rich as Jeff Bezos, or the king of your own country? All joking aside, college is a great opportunity, but I would have chosen something more interesting for my one wish, especially since the rules of the game say that I'm putting my friends' lives on the line to get it. Courtney's computer starts printing out wanted posters with distorted images of Cotton, and unless it does that often, the evidence is stacking up that they're trapped in some sort of alternate reality. She gets jump scared by the mailman, which is going to happen a lot as she gets older and starts having to pay her own bills. But it's just her acceptance letter to the university, her deepest desire coming true. If she really doesn't think her grades were good enough to get in, then she should trust her gut that it's all related to the game they played. Z comes off as a nasty person, and it was nice of the other three to be friends with her at all. I get that she has daddy issues and still doesn't believe that the game is real, but she needs to start being nicer to her friends if she wants to survive. Z argues that the object can't have magical powers because they found it at a garage sale, but in my opinion, that's probably one of the more likely places you'd end up finding a cursed object. Also, did she not listen to the creepy old lady who explained the whole thing to her right at the beginning? She said in no uncertain terms that if they put their hands on the object, their desires come true, their friendships get tested, and if they lose, they all die. Z needs to wake up and get out of denial before she's the reason why they all end up killed by the friendship game. Alone in what must be a stranger's yard, unless they were hanging up all the posters in the alley right behind her house, Courtney sees the tin of pills that she gave Cotton at the rave come rolling around the corner like a Chef Boyardee can trying to find its way home. Whatever's going on here, pulling out your phone and recording a video isn't going to save you, but running away might. Courtney sees Cotton through the camera on her phone before she makes a kitchen knife appear in her hand and pushes it into her stomach. Luckily, it turns out to be a hallucination, but this is even more evidence that they're trapped in the game's version of reality. To me, it's been clear for a while that they're still under the game's control, and Courtney, Robbie, and Z need to hurry up and fix their friendship so they can get out of this alive. Next, we see things from Robbie's perspective. In the alley behind Z's job, he tries to get her to talk about what's going on, but she gets in her car and leaves. As she drives away, he yells that all of their desires are coming true, even hers. Robbie goes back to the building where they had the rave and sits on the roof thinking over the situation. Suddenly, he sees someone walking by downstairs even though no one else should be there. He walks around investigating and comes to the room where the couch where he and Z made out, looking much less romantic in the daylight. Robbie hears a noise behind him, and when he goes to investigate, he finds Cotton standing at the end of the hallway, who asks him if his friendships have survived in a demonic voice. Suddenly, they're back in her bedroom, and Robbie looks down to see that his hands are covered in blood. Cotton tells him that they're all going to fail and begins bleeding from her stomach, but Robbie snaps out of it and finds himself back in the abandoned building. He realizes all of this must be connected to the game, and runs off to start trying to set things right. Robbie parks his car in a field and sneaks into Cotton's bedroom through the window. Back at his command station, Creepy Kyle gets a notification that motion was detected in Cotton's bedroom and turns on her webcam. Seeing Robbie rummaging through her things, Robbie finds a picture of the four of them together and puts it in his pocket before opening her dresser and finding the evil object inside. Creepy Kyle watches through the webcam when suddenly the image distorts and Cotton appears in the room looking directly at him. Startled, Kyle jumps out of his chair and Cotton asks him if he wants to play a game with her. Just then, Kyle is sucked into some sort of alternate dimension, and Cotton approaches him saying that he saw something he shouldn't have. Several hands reach out from the darkness and grab him, and he screams as the image on the computer screen freezes on his face. Sitting in his chair, Kyle's face glitches out in real life, indicating that he's now possessed by the entity. That makes 2 victims down, with 3 more to go. Okay, we talked about this before, Robbie, but waiting for someone in the alley behind their job isn't the best way to get them to listen to you whatever you have to say, even if you are best friends having a fight. I have to give him credit though. Robbie seems to be the only one who's really putting the pieces together here, and he could be the reason why they all make it out of this after all. Robbie returns to the scene of the crime and goes to hang out in the abandoned building for a while, I guess to do some soul searching about the whole missing friend thing. It's pretty obvious that he's going to run into a ghost out there, which could end up being a good or bad thing depending on if you walk away with some useful information about what's going on or just end up dead. Finally, Robbie figures out that this is all happening because of the game and starts to come up with a plan to fight back, heading to Cotton's house to get the mysterious object. Sneaking into Cotton's room through the window is a questionable entrance strategy, and a good way to get yourself labeled as a person of interest in her disappearance if you happen to get caught. Robbie was one of Cotton's best friends, and probably could have just asked her mom to let him into her room if he came up with a good enough excuse excuse, but at least he's taking some action here, unlike the other two. He puts a picture of the four of them in his pocket, which could be useful to remind himself of the ultimate goal of restoring their friendship if the game starts to mess with his mind. Meanwhile, creepy Kyle is watching on the webcam. His curiosity ends up getting the better of him, and he's possessed by the game's spirit as well. He's not exactly a great person, so I don't feel bad for him, but being possessed is obviously going to end up being a problem for Z tonight when she gets there to babysit. Hopefully Robbie can get to her in time before they all end up victims of the game. Z arrives at Kyle's house to babysit him for the night. Donna thanks her for coming on such short notice. She mentions that she knows he's past babysitting age, but she just needs someone to make sure he stays out of trouble before thanking Z and heading out. Z sits on the couch watching TV when the doorbell rings, and she answers to find Robbie and Courtney at the door. Robbie brought the cursed object and says that they should play again, thinking that since their deepest desires have changed, they might get a second try. The girls are skeptical, but the three of them put their fingers on the object and start to play. They each say that they want to know what happened to Cotton, with Z sounding like she's forcing it. At first, nothing happens, but suddenly the object begins to vibrate. A piece of it snaps at Z, cutting her finger and drawing blood, and Courtney runs out of the room, saying they shouldn't be messing with that thing. Later, Z tries to wash the blood out of the carpet while Robbie and Courtney sit in the other room talking. Z overhears them saying that she doesn't care and confronts them. And Courtney is about to storm out of the basement, but Robbie points out that if their friendships don't survive, then neither will they, and convinces them not to give up. Suddenly, all three of their phones begin displaying the webcam recording of the first time they played the game. They watch intently as each of them goes through their desires. Robbie says that his deepest desire is to be better at attracting girls, and Z says that hers is to not care when her friends leave her behind. The three of them stand in stunned silence, realizing for certain that their desires are coming true. They try to figure out where the video could be coming from, and Z realizes that it might have something to do with creepy Kyle. She says that she's going to bring him downstairs and distract him, and tells Robbie to sneak up and look through his computer for any more evidence. Z goes up to Kyle's room, but he doesn't even turn around when she walks in, completely focused on his computer. She starts telling him about her daddy issues, and he finally chimes in that his dad is dead. She grabs a movie from his shelf, and they go downstairs to watch it on the couch together. Robbie sneaks up to Kyle's room and turns on the computer. Right away, he discovers dozens of saved recordings of Cotton's webcam. He chooses one file and opens it, seeing Cotton in bed with an unidentified other person. Suddenly, Kyle pops up on the bed behind them and says that Cotton was one of his favorites to watch. Robbie scolds him for his creepy behavior and nervously asks if he has any more videos of Cotton with this creepy man. On the computer screen, Cotton gets up out of bed and it's revealed that Robbie was the person she was sleeping with. Robbie stands there in shock, saying that he and Cotton were never together in that way, but when he turns around, creepy Kyle is gone. Downstairs, Z notices the object vibrating on the kitchen table. She also asks if Kyle is seeing what she's seeing, but he doesn't respond. Z walks up to the object and goes to touch it when Robbie stumbles into the room, asking what she thinks could be the cause of the vibrations. She notices that Robbie's bleeding from his nose and asks him what he found on the computer. Robbie says that he didn't tell her, but he saw Cotton walk in on them when they were making out at the party. Z asks Robbie if he and Cotton were sleeping together, but he seems completely spaced out and asks her if she ever feels like someone else is the one living her life. She says that he's scaring her, causing him to have a violent outburst. Alone in the bathroom, Courtney looks at herself in the mirror and starts to cry. Suddenly, she has a flashback to being in Cotton's room and screams. Z and Robbie come to investigate, but Z slams the door in Robbie's face. Okay, I brought this up before, but if Z is so scared of creepy Kyle that she thinks she might need to call the police, why would she agree to go babysit him? Especially after her best friend has recently gone missing, this isn't the time to be taking chances with any of the local creepy kids. Robbie's plan to use the game again actually makes a lot of sense to me, and they should all be on board with it. After all of the craziness that they've been experiencing, it shouldn't take them much convincing to see that they're working within the game's reality. The only problem here is that you still can't trust everyone to be completely honest or hold up their part of the game, especially Z, who seemed very unenthusiastic when she said her desire was to know what happened to Cotton. The game actually slices Z's finger, which to me is an indication that it caught her lying this time. Maybe Z doesn't want to know what happened to Cotton because she's afraid that she can't handle the truth. but she's going to need to start cooperating if her friends are going to survive. Down in the basement, Z gets confrontational and Courtney is about to leave, but Robbie once again shows that he's the only one who listened to the rules at the beginning, and tells them that if their friendships don't survive, then the game will kill them all. As the recording of their first time with the game mysteriously begins to play on their phone, Z thinks it must have something to do with Creepy Kyle. She's almost right, but it would have been extremely difficult for him to hack into all three of their phones that way, no matter how good he is with computers. Obviously, this is more proof that the game is manipulating their reality, but even after everything that's happened, Z is still in denial and searching for logical explanations. And instead of splitting up to go look for more answers, they need to just confess to what's bothering them and fix their friendships, so that they can get back to their real lives. When Creepy Kyle's possessed twin walks up behind Robbie in his bedroom, Robbie should have known right away that this wasn't the real Kyle, since Z was supposed to be distracting him downstairs and would have tried to warn Robbie if he was on his way up. Robbie finds a video on the computer of him and Cotton sleeping together, but if he really doesn't remember doing that, then he should just trust his instincts and know that this is all just a part of the game's manipulation. Down in the kitchen, Z notices the object start to vibrate by itself, which is never a good sign, but that's quickly overshadowed when Robbie stumbles into the room acting strange. His nosebleed and sudden aggressive outbursts are clear sign that he's been possessed by some evil spirit, and I'd be keeping a close eye on him in case he starts to get violent. If I were in Z's position, I would normally say that it's time to get ready to take Robbie out, but that's not going to work since we need everyone to become friends again or I'd die too. Slamming the door in his face is only going to drive him further into his psychotic episode, and you need him on your side if you're going to win the game. Z helps Courtney compose herself, and she reveals that she slept with Robbie too. They realize that he used the same approach about infinite possibilities on both of them, and that the person that they were speaking to felt a lot like Robbie but less familiar. Alone in the kitchen, Robbie sees the silhouette of a person standing in the darkness out in the yard and goes to investigate. In the other room, Creepy Kyle sits staring at the TV showing a distorted image of his own face. Without being touched, the object starts to spin. Outside, Robbie finds Kyle staring into the darkness. He looks behind him and finds Cotton's bloody body laying in the fish pond. Robbie screams out of confusion, but when he turns around, Kyle is gone. He runs back to the house, but the back door is locked, and Z and Courtney can't hear him yelling to warn them. In the bathroom, Z says to Courtney that if this is a test, then they're all failing, but they say that they still love each other despite everything. Z walks around the house looking for Robbie, but he is nowhere to be found, and in the dining room, she sees that the object is spinning like crazy. In the kitchen, a glitched out image of Cotton appears on Courtney's phone, and Robbie sneaks in through Kyle's bedroom window, finding a file on his computer labeled Cotton Allen, murdered. Courtney picks up her phone, and Cotton thanks her for giving her the pills before seeming to die on camera. Robbie opens the file and sees a video of himself stabbing Cotton in the chest with a huge kitchen knife. He stands over her confused, and she thanks him, saying that the friendship game tested them all and they failed. She cries and says that they never should have played the game and that every version of it ends up with her dead. Suddenly, Robbie is sucked into the alternate dimension and Cotton walks up and stabs him in the neck. Back in the pond, Robbie kneels over Cotton's dead body and glitches out, now possessed by the game as well. That makes 3 victims down with 2 more to go. Back at the rave, Z wakes up on the bathroom floor with a nosebleed. She gets up and stumbles around the party looking for her friends. Z goes outside to throw up and runs into an extremely upset Cotton, who tells her that she's leaving town for good. Z wants to go with her, but Cotton says that she's not invited because of what happened between her and Robbie. She tells Z that they're no longer friends, and that's the reason why her dad left. Z tries to say that her dad left for his own reasons, but Cotton points out that Z is always blaming other people for her problems. Furious, Z punches Cotton in the face and she falls and hits the back of her head on the car, knocking her unconscious and possibly killing her. Back in the kitchen, Z stares at the object spinning on the table when Creepy Kyle walks up behind her. He says that they tested her and she failed, and she clutches her stomach in pain. Courtney hears Robbie pounding on the back door and goes to let him in, but he stabs her in the stomach with the knife, killing her. That makes 4 victims down, with 1 more to go. Z stumbles into the room and sees Robbie in the process of cutting up Courtney's body. She backs away but falls to the ground and sees the object floating in the air in the hallway in front of her. Z crawls upstairs with Robbie following close behind. She tries to shut the bathroom door but is too weak, and Robbie stands over her with the knife about to kill her. Z begs Robbie to stop, saying that they're best friends, and he pauses for a moment with Cotton appearing behind him in the doorway. The game sucks Z into the alternate dimension where Cotton confronts her, saying that this is all her fault. Z says that she thought Cotton left her like her dad did, but that she can't hate her, and that she's sorry for letting her down. Z reaches out her hand, and Cotton takes it, restoring their friendship despite all that's happened. Back at the yard sale, events seem to have reset, and Cotton walks around checking things out until she comes upon the friendship game object once again. The creepy old lady is there and explains the game to Cotton a second time, but Z walks up and they hug, saying that their friendship doesn't need any testing. As they walk away, Z looks back and sees the old lady watching them. Okay, it looks like Z and Cotton managed to finally beat the game using the power of friendship, but there are still a few things here that I want to point out. Z and Courtney finally fixed their friendship, which is a good first step, but they really should have stayed together with Robbie so that they could finish the game. Meanwhile, he climbs in through the creepy kid's window and finds a file on the computer labeled Cotton Allen Murdered. Unless he missed it the first time, that file was definitely not on the computer when he looked through it before. And Robbie should catch on that this is yet another of the game's devious tricks. Courtney gets a video call from Evil Cotton, who says that she took all the medication that Courtney gave to her, but Cotton never took them from Courtney. Courtney probably should have remembered that, and if she did, it would have exposed this as more psychological manipulation by the game. Z might be the worst of all, since in her scenario, she punched Cotton so hard in the face that it ended up killing her. It's no wonder that they almost fail the game completely, since Robbie and Courtney are both so dumb and Z is such a bad friend. Since they split up and left him alone, Robbie becomes completely possessed by the game, which is the exact opposite direction of the way Z and Courtney need things to be going right now. Possessed Kyle tells Z once again that this is all happening because they're failing the game. So all they need to do to escape is just fix their friendship. But that's going to be pretty difficult now that evil Robbie is on a killing rampage. Z's attempt to get away might be one of the saddest excuses for an escape that I've ever seen. First of all, she runs without looking where she's going and crashes into a wall, which apparently makes her legs stop working since she decides to crawl all the way up the stairs. Everyone knows that you should never run upstairs, but if you're going to, at least try to give yourself enough time to lock the door before your possessed friend comes bursting in. Robbie is about to kill her, but at the last second, Z admits that she was wrong and fixes her friendship with Cotton, finally beating the game. We knew from the very beginning that this is how the game worked, so it's really their own faults that things went this far before they figured it out. But watching them fail so miserably actually got me thinking about another way Z could beat the game without needing her friend's help at all. My plan goes like this. We know that the game makes your deepest desire come true, and you can use it again as many times as your desires change. So once I realized that a demonic entity from within the game was hunting me and my friends down and trying to kill us, my deepest desire at that point would be obviously to survive. In order for me to survive, I need to beat the game, and in order for me to beat the game, my friendships need to be fixed. So I'd simply tell the game that my deepest desire was to live, then the game would be forced to make my desire come true, fixing my friendships and beating itself through a flaw in its own logic. Z and Cotton's strategy might not have been as high level as mine, but it still works. And luckily for them, it seems like beating the game reset the time loop and everything is back to normal. The only problem is that this means creepy Kyle still has access to Cotton's webcam, which is troubling, but oh well, win some, lose some, I guess. Z and Cotton walk back to Courtney and Robbie, and Cotton asks Z about her deepest desire. But Z says that her wish already came true and that she just wants to be with her friends, and they drive away. With the yard sale still going on, an older woman and her friend pick up the object, about to become the next unsuspecting victims of the friendship game. But what would you do if you and your friends accidentally got sucked into a death game? Would you follow the rules or make your own? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. And don't forget, from now on, we'll be uploading on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Until next time, have a damn good day.